I'm going to show you how to start and scale a digital marketing agency. This is the exact process that I would go through if I was starting again. I was able to build my digital marketing agency all the way up to $40,000 per month. So this will definitely work. But along the way in my journey, I pretty much made every single mistake. So with this is if I could go back knowing what it is that I know now, I would not make the same mistakes. Now, of course, with all of this, digital marketing does cover quite a lot. Myself, I specialized within YouTube when I very first got going, which did actually cross over into quite a lot. We had to do strategy, we had to do script writing, we had to do editing, we had to do thumbnails, we had to coach clients on how to record. We did uploading and also tracked analytics. We then later did landing pages and we were able to build out the full funnel and use YouTube to generate leads. So it's crossed over on quite a few different things, but no single agency is the same. With this, if you are similar to me with how I got into it, it was my interest. It was the thing that I was passionate about. I did YouTube for a very long time. And then from there, I just had the skills that it made sense for me to naturally transition over to this agency model. So chances are you probably already have some type of a skill set that you can go through and build this on. So this was exactly what it is that I would go through and do. So with that skill set in place, what I would first figure out is what is that skill set able to actually go through and accomplish. You want to solve one real goal for your client, and it's not going to be the deliverable that it is that you deliver. Yeah, again, my first mistake was when I first started my YouTube agency. I would go through and offer videos because we were helping them with videos. But the thing is, the clients did not want videos. They wanted what those videos produced. And depending, and we'll talk about this in a second, but depending on who you're talking to would depend on the goal for that video. If we were to go through and target influencers, then they want those views. They want to be known. They want to be famous. Whereas if we were targeting business owners, they don't really care too much about being famous. They want to be able to make sure that they can get their awareness so that people know about them and know about their business. But ultimately, they want to be able to get leads. They want to be able to go through and get customers. They want to get clients. They want to be able to increase their revenue. So you need to figure out what the end goal is and what people are actually going to be going through and buying into. So once you start to figure out what problem that you are there to actually go through and solve, not just the deliverables, you can then move on to the next step, which is actually picking a niche. Now, when people go through and pick a niche, they either do one of two things, and this is where I made both of these mistakes as well. They either don't go through and pick a niche, and they just say, hey, we go through and do everything for everyone, which became a bit of a problem for me because, yet again, what people want and who it is that you're targeting will want different things. So what ends up happening is that there is not a set process that you follow with your system. And that becomes a massive issue down the line because you can't bring in team members to go through and follow the system step by step because the system is not set. It is different for each and every single person. And that's when you just say that your niche is going to be anyone who's actually going to pay for your service. On the other side, if you go ultra specific, I've met a lot of lead generation agencies who would talk about helping service-based businesses which are local to them. And they would say that they're only helping a very specific type of business. They're only helping real estate agents. And that's fine, but there's no actual need for it to be specific just locally to you unless maybe you're going to go and film in their locations, in which you may want to go through and change who it is that you're targeting because there is only going to be a set limit of who it is that you can actually go through and help. So you could open that up a bit broader so that it could be any type of service-based business, but you still follow a step-by-step process and is close proximity to you. Or it's the case that you can actually remove the on-site filming or have that as something that they have to pay extra for you to go to that location. But you can then go through and target way more people across the country, which are real estate agents. So picking a niche here does normally come down to like two. Normally you're either going way too broad or it's way too specific. Just go through and lock in exactly who it is you want to work with. I personally work with agencies now, which is specific enough that when I go through and write out any type of post or put together any type of video, you know that I'm talking to you as an agency owner. I'm not talking to business coaches. I'm not talking to consultants. It's you as an agency, but it's still broad enough that it could be any type of agency and there's going to be different types of problems, but still it's good enough that I would have my set system and it's going to work with every single type of agency. And that's where you want to have that balance. If you do not pick out a niche, it does become harder with your messaging. And I can't tell you how many times that I've tried to go through and sell my services to someone, and I actually thought that I was the best. People have even said that what I have is actually really strong, but they went with someone else because they specialize in their type of business. So this can help when you go through and do this correct. But at the beginning, you often feel like it's not going to be something that's beneficial because you want to go through and capture as much of the market as possible. From my recommendations, make sure that you are going through and picking a niche. From there, you can then pick the outcome that they want, and it becomes pretty much a straight line. We have what it is that your service is, or your skill set, what it is that you're going to go through and try to help them do, the goal, the problem that you're going to solve, the niche, and then being able to just align all of that from start to finish so that you can actually get the messaging and your positioning correct, that it is going to align with exactly what it is that they want. Yet again, don't try to force this. Don't try to shoehorn this. I see this a lot with video editors, especially here on YouTube, that people will reach out to me or they would reach out to people that we've worked with before. And they'll say, hey, look, we're going to edit your video and we're going to be able to go through and get you more clients, which isn't really the job of a video editor. It suddenly becomes a bit of a mismatch. And what will end up happening is they'll get onto a call with that video editor because they do like the idea. It's a desirable outcome. Don't get me wrong there. Being able to get more clients is definitely something that people want to be able to achieve. But once they get onto that call and start talking to that video editor, and then maybe they sign up and then 2 or 3 months go by and they haven't seen an increase in the amount of clients that they have because the problem is actually strategy and they've got the wrong video ideas, suddenly it becomes a bit of an issue for that video editor who has linked themselves to a desirable outcome that they literally have no control over whatsoever. So it's one of those that you do want to go through and link it. With this though, it is something that you can work with. If you are a video editor or you're doing a very specific section as part of a bigger process, what you can do is list out every single problem that is in their way, which will prevent them from achieving that desirable outcome. When you go through and do this, this is where we go through and move ourselves away from just being a commodity, such as a video editor, such as someone who just creates blogs, such as someone who just creates landing pages or just creates websites, because you're going to be compared to everyone else who just does those things. When you link yourself to a desirable outcome, you can list every single problem that they would face, everything in terms of like what they have to do, how they do it, what they don't actually understand of how to actually go through and do it, anything that's going to be in their way from start all the way to finish. And it may go with outside the scope of what it is that you're doing. And this becomes very important because you will have people who have objections. So it may be the case that you are doing really good with a very, very specific part, but when you're going through and you're talking to them on a sales call, they might go, oh, but what about this or what about that? And there may be a percentage, there will be a percentage, not may, there will be a percentage that will not buy into your service because they don't know how to go through and do something and you're not offering it. So you could say, hey, yeah, we can go through and help with that. We have, something that you can just go through and follow along with, and it's a DIY, or we do it with you, or it's done for you. You can go through and figure what that is within your business in order to go through and get it to work. For me, I really enjoyed just doing absolutely everything because I like the control, but there may be a problem later down the line with scaling. Right now, since we're just trying to go through and get started, I would recommend that you just go through and do everything. And then as time goes on, you can start to figure out what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you want to go through and set to just be done with them. Because then at that point, there's less stuff that you need to go through and do within your ops to actually go through and make sure that your team does it every single time 100% correct, especially if it is something which is quite intensive and there's quite a lot of moving parts. But just go through, list absolutely everything. Now you can actually build the service around the result. Everything that you're doing here is to actually go through and set up something which is a bit more enticing and not just be a commodity of you just doing whatever it is that you're selling as a deliverable. Now we can actually build it around the result and you're going to actually have control over each and everything. this is where you can actually build the offer. The offer is going to be the thing that people are going to be buying into, not those deliverables. That's why we've just gone through and highlighted all of that. I do recommend with your offer, there are two sides to this. This took me a very, very long time to go through and do, way longer than what I'm happy. In fact, it took me years. I was going to say that it took me way longer than what I'm happy to actually disclose. But yeah, it's embarrassing of how long it took me to go through and figure this out. But I like to go through and have my paid offer, which is of course where we're going to be able to make money. And I would have a one-time purchase to something. I did originally go through and just put this into a retainer. And because we were having so many different things that had to go on, so many moving parts, I would just slap this as a one-time, or like a retainer being $4,000 per month. So that means they come to us and we're immediately charging $4,000. But that means that we need to go through onboarding, which is a full month. We need to record videos. We needed to get ahead, and we was not going to publish. So immediately they're already down $4,000 until we start publishing. And then once we start publishing, it was the case that it was going to take a bit of time for it to ramp up. So they have to keep spending $4,000, $4,000, $4,000, $4,000. And it's a high risk. There's a chance that this isn't going to work within their minds. So what it is that I now go through and do is I have my free offer, which is entirely free, and it's still linked to my desirable outcome. So if we're going through and we're saying that you're going to be able to go through and get 10 new clients within 30 days, you can still run that. And even though it doesn't link to your deliverables, that's the whole point of why we just went through what we previously went through. You can still go through and do your thing. So that could still be that you're doing paid ads. You could go through and do outreach. You could go through and do some other type of marketing. Ultimately, it comes down to you. But we are linking it to a desirable outcome. So 10 clients within 30 days. If we're going to go through and put this as a free offer, that's to go and draw people in. If you could get 10 clients within 30 days for free, that's going to be quite enticing. But this is, we show you how to do it and you just do it. Like, that's it. That's all that's going to be. But that brings people in so that we can get them on a sales call. Then we have a one-time offer, which is, hey, look, you can go through and get 10 clients within the next 30 days and you could do it for free, or we could do it with you, in which we'll go through and do all of this. You just need to do this bit and we'll be able to go through and achieve that. And it's going to be way more efficient. And then of course, we'll put a price tag on that. You'll have a percentage of people who will go for that offer, and that's where we make our money. They also get the results. And then after the 30 days, we go, whoa, you've already got the 10 clients. Now let's go into a retainer and let's actually build upon this. And that's when we go through and continue that after. That's the way I like to structure things, because it then means that we pretty much get absolutely everything. We lower the risk for the client, but we get way more people who will come through. Yes, you do need to do a bit more free work. And yes, you probably will need to go through and do way more than what I've just said if you have no previous results. You might actually have to do the work for them. When I first started, I would edit videos. It wasn't for free, but it was incredibly cheap. It would take me several hours to edit a video and it was for $15. So it's going to be the case that you want to go through and have this heavily discounted or even free, just so that you can go through and get those results. And then of course, be able to show that to get more people in. And of course, because you're highlighting that it's free or it's discounted, you're going to get a lot of attention to this. The important thing is that we want to make sure that we are able to go through and sell a percentage, which then of course covers for all of that. And then of course, we're able to get the results on the back end. So then of course, we can go through and put them into a retainer. But a free offer and a paid offer still can link to the same thing. So it's still the same thing, that you're not having to go through and be 10 clients within 30 days. And then, for the paid offer, it's going to be something way, way crazier. No, they're both the same thing. It's just a choice of how they want to go through and handle it. And this is where I, yet again, made another massive mistake. I did all of my stuff and I immediately started to build the systems within the business. We do not want to go through and do that just yet. It's tempting because it feels productive. It feels like you're doing something, but we actually want to get people who's going to actually start being interested, start raising their hands, start, being able to say, hey, I actually want to buy into your service. So that means that we need to go through and start with warm outreach. Now, I like to go through and show this. This is Dunbar's Circle of Friendships, and it's not really related too much to business. I went through it at uni, and it's about your brain capacity of how many faces and names that you're able to remember until your brain just hits capacity. However, I still like showing this because you'll probably also go through the exact same thing when you're going through and starting with your digital marketing agency. So we want to be able to get a list of people in which look at your friends first, look at your colleagues, look at people that you know, and then start to go through and work out. As you go out, you'll be able to reach more and more people, but it's also going to be a case that it gets a bit colder and colder and colder, and then you'll start to see a bit of a drop off. What I typically go through and do, and it doesn't need to be anything too crazy here, it becomes very easy to message these people because you're also like, you know them in some way. So you could just go to your friend and be like, hey, I'm starting my business. This is what I'm doing. This is who I'm helping. This is the desirable outcome. Do you know anyone who would be interested? Or maybe you already know that they would be somewhat interested, that you can say, hey, would you be interested in this? And you could go through and push your free offer and then just go through and tell them yet again on the call, this is the free offer, you do it yourself. But if you want to go through and, me go through and do it, this is how much it's going to go through and cost. So go through all of that. So your intimates, your close friends, best friends, good friends, friends, acquaintances, and then also no names. So this is going to be the case that you just slowly start to push this out. Now, this list won't last forever. It is going to be the case that you'll run out probably way quicker than what you think. I didn't really have many friends. So it was the case that mine was like done in maybe like a few minutes. But you'll just go through that list of people. How you find them is literally just going through and looking at your contacts. So how, literally that. You're probably on social media, you've probably got WhatsApp, you've probably got people's phone numbers. Just go through that list of people and you can note them down. How I go through and do this now is that I tell people, just go through, get a Google Sheet, get names, get contact information, and then you can also go through and put a drop down, which is message sent or not. And you may also want to go through and set some follow-ups. But it becomes very easy that you could potentially get a couple hundred, few thousand people. It does depend. I remember, again, when I first started, I would look at YouTube tutorials and people would say, just message all the business owners that you knew. And I didn't know anyone. And I thought I had to know business owners, but it's the case that you just message the people that you know. It just so happens that they knew business owners. That was part of their network. I didn't, because I was quite young, that I just had friends and I didn't message them. Now, go through, message the people that are in your list. You will be able to go through and build this out. And depending on how active you've been on social media before would depend on how many people, or how nice you are, or how many friends you got would depend on how many people you can contact. But just go for it, whatever it is that you have. If you can, and this is pretty much a rule going forward, because we will be talking about outreach again in a second, send at least 50 messages per day. Typically, I would wake up, I would go through, I'll check my account, and I'll just message people daily because we want to start conversations. The biggest reason, or should I say, the reason that it took me longer to go through and reach my goals financially within my business compared to what it could have been if I was to go through and just restart the whole thing again is because I didn't let people know. I just went straight into building out the systems after I had my offer because I wanted everything to be perfect so that once I onboarded a client, they were loving it. And I believe that if you build it, they would come. Just go through, start messaging everyone. That's going to be your priority. So go through that warm list. It may be the case that you can go through it within a couple minutes or maybe a few hours. Others, if you're quite popular, you might be able to get like a week or two out of this. Do as many. If you can do more than 50, even though it's boring, do 100, 150, 200, whatever it is at the time that you have. I would also, at this point, start getting ready of creating content, which might be a bit controversial, but it will make sense for the next slides. I'm not telling you to start creating YouTube content and spend 3-4 hours per day creating videos. I would actually not recommend starting that yet again, because that was the thing that I did. I already knew YouTube, that I was able to benefit from it relatively quickly, but I wouldn't recommend it to most people unless you've already got previous experience creating content on YouTube. The easiest one to go through and do is Twitter or LinkedIn, something which is just going to be, you can log in, spend like 10, 15, 20 minutes max, post, be done, go back to messaging all day. It's purely just because we want to be able to set that proof. So us just going through and messaging, it counts as a touch point, but we want to have multiple touch points. We want to be able to go through and post, and some people would see our message, click on our profile, go to our profile, and go, oh, actually, like he's actually doing okay. he's just helped this person do XYZ, or he's just said something that makes sense in case you don't have results, that you've just gone through your framework and actually that could benefit me. I'm actually going to go from reply. So it acts more as social proof if you do have the proof, or it's just an extra touch point that you can have to then go from build trust. I don't expect you to start posting and immediately get to 24,000 impressions within just, however many days this is, like 18 days. It's going to be the case that you go through, you might get like 100, 200, 300 impressions within a week, but it's something. It is a touch point and you're going to be able to use that. And it's not going to take that much time for you to go through and do, especially with AI nowadays. The other side to this is that there will also be people outside of your network who would then also interact with this and engage, in which you can then also go through a message. So this is where we would move on to our cold outreach as well. So once you've got the warm list of absolutely everyone, you can then of course see the people who engage with your content and just message those. It won't be a crazy number right to begin with. We are just putting a few posts out there, but you just message the people who engage and interact with your content as long as they align with your target audience. And then we can actually start manually putting lists together, or other ways in which to go through and put lists together, so that we can constantly keep on going through and doing outreach so that we can hit that 50 plus messages every single day. How do we go through and do this? Well, it's also quite simple. Go where your niche already lives. So this can be on LinkedIn. You could go through and, scrape emails and then go through and send those through Gmail or something like that. You can go through and pull them on Instagram and message there. You can go through and do Twitter or X and message them there. This is where I made another mistake. It's going to be a video filled with a shit ton of mistakes. I, again, did YouTube, which is great, and it was good for me. I don't think it was the best for me when first starting. I think I would have done better if I stuck to a platform that I can post content on, that I can message people, in which YouTube, you can't message people anymore. You used to be able to do that many, many years ago, but you couldn't message people. So you had to go through and build out your landing pages and set up your full funnel in order to get people to actually opt in for your to get their email and then put them into a newsletter. If I was able to go back, I would start with potentially LinkedIn and also Twitter. The reason for that is because LinkedIn is great for B2B. There's a lot of professionals on there, so it becomes very easy to find people, and the targeting is also pretty decent with Sales Navigator. It's not amazing. There's some things that I don't like, but you can go through and target the people that you want to target, and then you can just send connection requests. Now, the reason I say LinkedIn and Twitter is because there is a limit on how many connection requests that you can send per week, which if you have premium is 200 connection requests per week. At the time of recording this video, who knows whether or not they're going to go through and change it. But that does mean that you can't really do 50 messages per day. You may be able to if you've got the list of all of those people in your warm whilst you're trying to go through and do this, but there will come a point where if you are doing 50 per day, eventually you are going to get to a point of where like your capacity of how much you're doing is not going to be as much compared to how many you can send on LinkedIn. So you will eventually catch up. It's still good. I still have some of my best conversations. It's still really good in terms of a return, but you may get a situation where if you're sending 200 connection requests every single week, not everyone's going to go for and accept those connection requests. It does depend on how you position yourself, but it's not going to be 100% guaranteed throughout the whole year. That you might have anywhere between 3 to 10 people that you can message each and every single day. So just go through, do that, and then once you're done, you can then go through and pick another platform where you can go through and do volume. If you did want to stick to LinkedIn, or LinkedIn's really good, maybe you're selling LinkedIn services, and that's a big point. Stick to the platform where you are trying to go through and sell those services. That you could go through and scrape from LinkedIn, get people's emails, and then do cold email. There's loads of different ways in which you can go through and do this, but whatever it is that you decide, make sure that it works for you. Another mistake that I made was that I would go through and watch YouTube tutorials on how to go through and do cold outreach, and people would say, oh, you should go through and do this because this is working well for me, but they're selling a completely different service to what I'm selling. So I ended up doing the thing that they did and just did not get the same responses as what they did. And that was because they picked the platform and they were recording a video showing how well it works for them with their service and their offer. When I was going through and doing content, my best thing is probably the thing that isn't the most scalable. So I couldn't go to a lead database and scrape those and then find people who are interested in doing YouTube content. My best bet was just go to YouTube, go through different profiles and different channels, pull their email address manually because there's a recapture event, put that into a CSV, go through, do that 100 times, and then write out emails for each and every single one, put that and then send that into like a cold email campaign and then just blast those. It was way more work and there was a lot more manual work as part of that compared to if I just scraped the list from, say, Apollo, which is a lead database. But it was going to be 1,000 times better for me because I already know that they have the intent to create YouTube content. So think about that. If you're going to go through and try to get people to start using a social media platform because that aligns with your service, and you're not targeting that social media platform, it's just going to be harder. And there are some social media platforms which are a bit easier to actually pull and scrape leads from compared to others. But this is one of those where intent is going to be your best thing. If they already have shown intent that they're doing the thing that your service can help them improve upon, it's going to be way easier to close them than someone else who's not currently doing that thing, where you need to educate them to actually go across and then convince them to then start doing the thing and for them to go through that full learning curve. So just go to where your audience already is. And this is what I mentioned about manual prospecting. You can just go through and do this manually to begin with. If you wanted to go through and speed it up, there are ways to go through and scrape leads. So when I was pulling leads from YouTube originally, I would type in a keyword of a type of business that I wanted to go through and target. Let's say that I wanted to target cold email. I could type in like how to start cold email, get a list of loads of channels that have created content relating to that topic, go through, open them all up into another tab, and then pull that email like previously mentioned. Or I could go through and take that exact same search term, go over to Appify, find a YouTube channel scraper, which is going to search for keywords, put my keywords into there, and it can scrape however many channels that I'm able to go through and set. There may be some duplicates in there, but now that has sped up the process of me just finding channels that I can now go through each and every single one and clean out which ones I think are actually worth reaching out to, scrape their email or pull their email manually and put that into a list. Again, for other platforms, this becomes a bit easier. If I was to go through and do LinkedIn, very, very easy that I could just use any type of scraping tool. Expandy is what I currently use. I can go through and get their profile and also their email address within a matter of minutes, and then actually set up a cold email campaign or even a cold outreach campaign to go through and send connection requests. Very, very easy. It ultimately does depend on the platform, and just do some research and try to figure it out. Don't just go to a different platform because it's easier. Figure out the platform where your audience actually is. And I would do this 100% of the time. If you don't have any clients, there isn't anything else for you to go through and do. And when I say 100% of the time, there are some people who say, oh, you need to go through and do this like 10 hours per day, 12 hours per day. If you have 10 to 12 hours, sure, go through and do that. If you're currently working a 9 to 5 and you only get like a few hours after work, then of course, just dedicate those few hours after work to just doing this, because you building out systems, your delivery, you currently don't have any clients. So we want to make sure that we do that. If you do have clients by this point, and you're definitely and should be having good conversations of people who would be interested with how much outreach and the types of content that we're actually going through and creating, then you want to go through and split your days into 3. So yeah, again, if you have 10, 12 hours per day, and then of course you can split this into these 3. If you do only have a couple hours per day, then it's still, you split it into this 3. But you have growing, building, delivery. Growing is where you're going to be going through and doing the outreach. This is where you create the content. This is where you do everything that we've just previously mentioned. Building is then, of course, when you're actually going to start to build systems that will either make growing easier, or it's going to be the case that makes delivery easier so you can free up your time to do more growing. It pretty much all comes down to that. And then delivery is actually going to be delivering the service that you promised to those clients to help them achieve that desirable outcome. Yeah, again, if you have a lot of hours to go through and do this, just split it up. If you do only have a couple hours, then go through and do that. It's perfectly fine when first starting to have like 3 hours per day and then put an hour into growing, an hour into building, an hour into delivery. Just make sure that you're organized and you know what you're going to do. I think the biggest thing is building. Of course, you want to grow and make sure you're doing outreach, but building, don't get distracted. Try to be smart with it and figure out what things are going to take the least time for you to actually build and set up, but would free up the most time. So then it doesn't have to be just your growth or just your delivery. actually put together a list or even track yourself using a platform like Toggle, and then see exactly how much time you're spending into an activity, and then start to think about maybe over the weekend or once every week, whatever day that is. I typically do mine on Friday, and go back through that week to see where you spent the most time, and then figure out how you can shrink it and what ways and what systems you can actually go through and build. And you'll start to figure out that some systems are going to be way easier to go through and complete compared to others, and it will free up way more time. So focus on those and put that in a priority list. Since we do have clients, ideally at this point, over deliver. So even when you go through, and normally I lock a few bonuses now behind closed doors. So when it means that we onboard them and they've signed up for something and they said, yeah, I'm interested, either the free version or the paid version, I've told them exactly what they're going to get. I'm actually going to give them more. So there'll be additional things that I'll also go through and give to them, just so that we can just highlight exactly how beneficial we are to them and how much we're going to go through and help them over deliver, because we would want them to refer, and we would want them to give us a testimonial, a review, all of that. And that feeds back into our loop. So at this point, we can actually start to map the client journey to know exactly what that process is. And this is going to be a steep learning curve. It isn't just like, there you go, map the client journey. When I've gone through and run out offers, again, when I started YouTube, I knew it, but delivering to clients was different. And there were things that came up that I never expected to actually happen. So you would start to understand, oh, this happens. Some clients go through this, some clients go through that. What you should go through and set. So what happens the moment after you have a sales call? You want to go through onboarding. What's actually involved within onboarding? Are you going to go through and send any videos? Is there going to be a form for them to go through and fill out? Is there a kickoff call? All of that needs to be included so you can start to map each and every single one down. Yet again, going all the way back to the beginning, if your niche is set that you are just going to go through and work with anyone who's going to pay you money, this becomes very, very, very hard. I would say impossible, depending on the service that you are delivering, because there's just way too many moving parts. You cannot map out anything. And suddenly you'll say, hey, look, we've got this coming up and like, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. And I'll be like, well, I'm not interested in X, Y, and Z, so I'm not going to go through and do it. It becomes very, very difficult. So once you go through and have that niche and you actually start, going through and delivering upon this, you'll start to be able to know exactly what's going to happen and when. This also goes back to my previous point of where I have some bonuses locked in. I know exactly when I'm going to give those bonuses or additional things if something else was going to happen, which I don't want to say we didn't expect, but it's not part of the original plan. Maybe they were able to sign a client way quicker than expected, that we might want to bring something forward just to help them with their sales. Or maybe their offer isn't quite clicking, that we would then be able to go through and do something else so that we can actually go through and help them get over that hurdle. You would be able to map all of that out because you've gone through and done it before. And this is where you're going to build systems. This is where you can put things together just to make it much, much easier to grow, to actually go through and deliver upon your services. So document everything that works. There's also a part within here where once you're actually going, there's going to be a few things that you want as part of your service, which takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, but it doesn't actually give that much impact. I used to go through and do my weekly updates of, hey, this is everything that's happening this week. This is what happened last week, quite valuable. But I would also do a monthly update, which is me recording a full 10, 15, 20-minute video, giving a full breakdown of everything that was already previously said within our weekly updates. It didn't really matter too much. So of course I dropped that, because once we start doing that for every single client, it takes up quite a bit of time. And there were days where I was just doing that and nothing else. So we can drop that, and then of course just go through and highlight a monthly update, which captures all the data that we had previously, because we've already set it all, and it can then just go through and send it. So you'll start to figure out those things of what's actually worth going through and doing. When we have all of this, start looking to go through and onboard team members. I say build systems first because when I first started, I wanted to bring on a channel manager, and I wanted them to overlook thumbnails, editing, script writing, uploading. I also wanted them to go through and handle strategy, and it was good for me. I was able to go through and do it because it was my business, so I was already doing start to finish, but I didn't build out the systems. I just wanted to go from hire a team member, brought them in. They didn't have a clue what they were doing. I didn't have a clue what they were doing either, and ultimately I just wasted a ton of money when I very first started. So I tend to grow a bit slower, just because once we get the offer going, we hit the ground running there and really start to push it, start to onboard clients. Then I start to figure out the delivery. Then I build out the systems, document absolutely everything so that we have SOPs, and then start to onboard team members. And there may even be some things whilst you're documenting stuff that you go, actually, maybe I don't need a team member for this. Maybe we could just go through and have AI. I used to have my like hire people, virtual assistants who would just proofread thumbnails and videos, that now like we could just go through and have AI do something similar. It's not every single video. We still have someone who goes through and checks, but it will do a review just to make sure everything's in place before it's sent to the account manager for them to go through and do. Which, again, when I first started, I tried to hire someone who would be a channel manager to go through and do all of this, and it was a complete mess. So document everything, build out the systems, and then of course you can start to look to go through and hire team members when everything has been documented. There's the lesson. Do not delegate what you do not understand. It feels weird because you see it all the time, especially massive corporations and enterprises, where they just tell team members what to go through and do, and then they build it all. But when we're going through and starting this from absolutely nothing, we haven't really got that power. If you are fortunate enough to go into this and you've got a co-founder who's going to have their role and their position and your role and your position, and you've got separate responsibilities and you can trust each other, great, that's awesome. That can actually work, and you can actually just say, hey, look, we need this, and they're just going to go through and do that. And you can trust that they're going to be able to go through and complete that to a high level. But in most cases, if you're just going to be running this solo, yeah, you're going to have to go through and do absolutely everything. That means all the outreach, all the content. You're going to be able to figure out like how you go through and actually structure things, how you go through and create graphics or video, like whatever it may be, how you deliver upon your service. And then you're going to be able to walk through the whole thing and then show people how to go through and do it. And it's going to be way cheaper and way more efficient as well, despite taking more time up front from you to actually be able to go through and do, and also potentially a bit more stress if you're trying to go through and do everything, which you are right at the beginning. But this will allow you to package the service. So at this point, you have got pretty much everything from start to finish of the skill set that you have, the niche. You're able to go through and put together an offer that which is linked to a desirable outcome. You're actually able to go through and find people that you can go through and pitch that to and offer that to, which is going to be quite attractive because you're starting with free, but then you can highlight the paid version of it, get that into a retainer. And then of course you're able to go through and build out the systems and build out your delivery so that you have teams there, so that once you go through and sell more, it actually has already and is already going to be handled, rather than everything being completely different. And you should be able to go through and get proof. That's going to be different for quite a lot of different types of, channels in this case, but depending on what it is that you're doing, I would go through and once we onboard a client, immediately take a screenshot of their channel. And then we would constantly keep on going through and taking screenshots whenever we hit new milestones. So you can see here, Jordan Ross had 1,500 when we first started working together, and now he's at 42,000. So we were able to go through and take screenshots of this, and we can use that. But we also had clients giving us reviews. We had them also jumping on to, calls where we would record the call and we can get clips of them saying how great we are. We got messages. We've got just dedicated testimonials where they've recorded videos and sent those across. You can now go through and have all of this, but all of that you have now goes all the way back to the front, because now this is also your marketing material that you can then use to highlight how good your free offer really is, because you've been able to do it to get more people in. And this is where things really start to kick off, because you've done absolutely everything from start to finish, that once you do have more people who are interested because you've helped someone else, then you've got the system. Like, you've got the system that you don't need to go through and spend as much time. And even if you did not have this, you are still got the systems to go through and do the outreach as well. I would recommend, and I'm going to skip over this we're going to jump through this because it's important, but we also haven't got the time to go through and talk about the full thing. Do build out a CRM. I wouldn't do this immediately after creating your offer, because yet again, you don't know what's there. But I think you're going to be dealing with such small numbers. And when I say small numbers, yeah, sure, it's going to be a few thousand still, but you're going to be able to manage that. Once you're starting to go through and send, say, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 emails every single day through cold outreach, or you're doing a few thousand per week in terms of DMs, then yeah, it's going to get very, very overwhelming. Plus, also, you're going to start to get a bit of a backlog. So there will be people who take your free offer and then you just hear nothing from them. And then suddenly you realize that you could follow up with them, but you don't remember like their email or anything. And then you have to go back for everything. So I would recommend at this point to look to have a CRM. I use Go High Level. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's really good compared to what I was doing before, which was just Google Sheets. And then also I was using ClickUp. ClickUp's great for task management and delivery, not so much for a CRM, in my opinion. I don't think Go High Level is particularly amazing with its reporting. So what we end up doing is having Go High Level, and then we just set automations to put some data into Google Sheets, and then of course present that into a dashboard. But it's still really good at being able to track every single contact so that you can then just send someone a call link. Once they book a call, it adds them in there. And then once you finish that call, you can set it up to have a reminder or a task to tell you to actually update this of when you should be following up. That way you can have your calls, and at the end of every single call, it's either they're going to take a free offer, which would then of course be the thing that you deliver, and then you have a follow-up email sequence, which can then push them into that paid offer. Then they're going to take the paid offer, in which they just go through your onboarding. It's going to be that they book a second call, a third, fourth, fifth, whatever it may be, but you've already got the call on your calendar, or none of those things, in which you need to have a follow-up date with them of when you're going to check back in. So all of this can be done within Go High Level, and you can also link this to go through and send emails from there as well. So it does become a lot easier. There will be a link to this in the description down below, as well as I do have videos breaking down exactly how to set up a Go High Level funnel and pipeline, for agencies. So then you can see that link below, and there'll also be a link at the top, which will pop up right now. But we want something to keep track of absolutely everyone so that we know where each and every single person is as part of our pipeline, so that we can focus on the ones which are going to give us the return much, much quicker. And then everyone else, we know when we need to go through and follow up with them and what we need to go through and say. So do create a CRM so that you can keep track of absolutely everything, because this is where it does get really, really messy. Another mistake, it took me about 2 years to build out a CRM, and then I tried to custom build one. I always do things the most complex way possible. Don't be like me. Just go through, use something like this, watch a few tutorials of how to set it up, and then just go through and run it. Track as much as you can. The most important thing is that you want to see how many leads that you're able to go through and get, how many are going to actually become engaged and then actually book a call. Then you want to see how many of those calls actually show, how many are actually turning into clients, and then how long on average does a client stay, what the average price point and profit is per client within that time frame as well. So then you can be able to go through and map out everything. When you have those numbers, it does become way easier in order for you to go through and scale. And I do recommend try to get this in, not as like the first thing, that's why it's in here, but once you have your CRM, you probably should be at around like 10K at this point, that you can then actually start to build this out, because that's going to help you scale way beyond this, rather than just being stuck at that number. And this is how you will be able to scale your agency, because you will have the numbers there. You know exactly how much you can invest into any type of marketing activity, which will then get you more clients. And not just that, you should be able to track at this point, when you do have a CRM, that you can actually see where each and every single lead came from, so you can track the return on investment of each and every single platform. It actually seems quite complex, but it's not. You just go through and set up some UTM tracking links that you can go through and put that on social media. You can go through and put that within ads or anything. And then of course it'll be able to set that when someone books a call, where exactly they came from. So you can actually go through and scale the agency. That means all you would need to go through and do is double down on what works. If there is something that isn't working, and there's going to be a lot of things, and sometimes it might be working, it's just that you need to put in way more time, way more energy, way more resources to get the same result as another platform or channel, which requires much less, but can still do much more. It's one of those where once you go through and see the data, it becomes obvious of where it is that you should be doubling down on. And that's exactly how I would go through and scale a digital marketing agency. Not from just 0 to 10K, which we'll be able to achieve, but actually set ourselves up so that we can take this way, way further. And if you did want to go through and see a video where I can expand further on this of how we go through and take this beyond 10K, then of course, just let me know, comment beyond 10K within the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to go through and get that set up at some point in the future. If you're here thinking, okay, what are the next steps? Well, make sure that you're going through and doing the offer, in which I do recommend watching this video right here, because I did make loads and loads of mistakes with my offer when I very first started. And that video will highlight exactly how you can go through and set this up so it can be as enticing as possible. I hope you enjoy.